bills. There are 9 at Committee of the Whole stage and 23 at third reading stage. This evening, when the House reconvenes at 8 o'clock, the members will be dealing with the government business, probably Committee of the Whole or else second reading of bills. Let us pray. As Canadians and as Albertans, we give thanks for the precious gifts of freedom and peace which we enjoy. As members of this legislative assembly, we rededicate ourselves to the valued traditions of parliamentary democracy as a means of serving both our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
Robinson Goldbar.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to present a petition from 28 Albertans regarding the dental treatment of temporomandibular joint disorders. Mr. Speaker, this petition requests that these disorders be reinstated in Alberta healthcare insurance, those for assessment and basic splint therapy. These were discontinued as of May the 1st this year.
Member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to present a petition today signed by 228 Albertans asking for a inquiry by the provincial government into the matter of the sale of contaminated diesel fuel at the Hinton Husky car truck stop in May of 1990.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 265, the Telemarketing Act. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to provide some guidelines and regulations for a blossoming industry in the province.
The honourable member for Calgary Northwest has moved first reading to Bill 265, Telemarketing Act. Those members in favour of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 265, Telemarketing Act, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Brusiker, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Public Works Supply and Services.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file with the Assembly today the responses to written questions 388 and 389. And as well, I'd like to table the annual report of the Department of Transportation Utilities for the fiscal period 1989-90.
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to file with the Assembly copies of a report prepared by the Provincial Medical Consultant's Office of Alberta Health entitled High Users of Healthcare Services Utilization and Interventions.
Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file with the Assembly the National Inventory of Environmental Research and Development Projects.
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to table today the required number of copies of the Health Disciplines Investigation of Midwifery Report. It is a final report with recommendations.
Introduction of special guests.
Associate Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly 4 visitors from my constituency. They are Mr. Norman Storch, his wife Leona, and Jason and Teresa. Mr. Storch is a member of the Premier's Council on Science and Technology, as well as a board member of the Alberta Agricultural Research Institute, and has provided some very valuable input to us. I would ask that they rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Millwoods.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my colleague, the member for West Yellowhead, I'd like to introduce 3 Albertans who are with us today. 2 gentlemen from Hinton, Mr. Carl Holba and Mr. Roland Sergiu, as well as from Lloydminster, Mr. Keith Sandmeyer. All 3 of these gentlemen were affected by the contaminated diesel fuel incident in Hinton last year.
Ministerial statements.
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of the honorable members of this Assembly are aware that the Health Disciplines Board recently completed a review of the practice of midwifery to determine if it could be regulated under the Health Disciplines Act. Today, I am pleased to have been able to table the report of the board before this Assembly. The board has recommended that the practice of midwifery be regulated under the Health Disciplines Act because the risks inherent in midwifery practice warrant regulation through professional legislation. In making this recommendation, the board acknowledged that several of the organizations stating support or acceptance of legislative recognition of midwives also identified significant issues related to the recognition of this practice. With this in mind, the board recognized that it was essential that continued dialogue take place among these groups. Consequently, we have decided to delay final legislation until this dialogue has occurred. In addition to the Health Disciplines Act, other legislative instruments to regulate the practice of midwifery will be considered. I am pleased to announce the establishment of the Midwifery Services Review Committee to continue the dialogue about midwifery. This committee will have representation from the Alberta Association of Midwives, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta, the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses, the Alberta Healthcare Association, and the Health Unit Association. This committee will be chaired by a member of the general public and will be required to report its findings to the provincial government by December the 31st, 1991. I won't take the time of this Assembly to discuss the terms of reference of this committee, but I have tabled them along with the report of the board. However, I do want to mention that the terms of reference are broader than those envisioned by the board. In its investigation, the board was naturally restricted to its mandate established in the Act, and therefore it could not pay close attention to other legislative instruments besides the Health Disciplines Act to regulate midwifery. We would like this committee to examine other possible legislative instruments. The board recommended that the primary focus of the committee would be to focus on issues related to the implementation of its recommendations. However, we are not at the implementation stage. We are asking the committee to examine issues identified by the board as requiring further investigation, as well as a number of matters such as a consideration of other legislative instruments that were beyond the scope of the original Board of Investigation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in replying to the ministerial announcement, certainly we welcome the fact that they seem to be moving, I hope I'm right here, that they seem to be moving to legalizing midwifery. It's long overdue, Mr. Speaker, and I understand now that it will be regulated under the Health Disciplines Act. Mr. Speaker, I remember being the health care critic after I was elected in 1982 and in 83, advocating midwifery at that particular time. So this is a long time later, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
the studies that we had at that particular time were that it was good. It was a good health practice. It was good for women, good for children. It was good when people have choice to where they want to have their baby, Mr. Speaker. And we were pushing for it back then, Mr. Speaker. Now, I welcome the first part of the announcement, but, Mr. Speaker, we do have some concern when the minister talks about a dialogue. As I say, this dialogue has been going on for many, many, many years, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure how much more dialogue we need before moving in and bringing legislation forward to this House. Now, Mr. Speaker, that's a concern I have, because dialogue can be an excuse not to deal with this issue, and I hope that is not the case, Mr. Speaker. I notice the committee will be reporting to the provincial government by December 31st, 1991. Fair enough, Mr. Speaker, but it doesn't tell us what's going to happen, what's the time frame after that, and actually moving ahead to legalizing midwifery. And I wish the minister could be a little more specific about that. Mr. Speaker, in the meantime, though, I would hope that there would be a commitment from this government, I haven't heard it, that till this report comes due, until we have legislation in their House, that there'll be no more charges laid under that point. I think that's an important point to make, Mr. Speaker. I expect that might be the case, but I wish the minister would have said that, Mr. Speaker. So with those concerns, we certainly welcome the fact that that the Health Disciplines Act is looking at moving forward, at least, to recognizing a needed service in the province.
Right on.
Oral question period.
The opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, to the Attorney General, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after 20 years of rule in conservative rule in Alberta, public confidence and trust in government, frankly, has never been lower, Mr. Speaker. And the government's response in Bill 40, its conflict of interest bill, to this situation is frankly inadequate, Mr. Speaker. Let's look at the bill's cooling off provision. I talked about public disclosure, why I saw the necessity for that yesterday, but let's look at the bill's cooling off provision as an example. The provision which prevents cabinet ministers from profiting from their previous positions for 6 months is not only too short a period of time, but also applies to too few people. Mr. Walkowicz suggested 1 year. The federal government has 2 years of cooling off period. Now, Mr. Speaker, but my point is, because it applies only to cabinet ministers, it will do nothing to prevent senior government employees, like recently Frank Calder and Margaret Bateman, from immediately gaining government contracts from the very people who they have just finished serving as employees. My question to the Attorney General is this: given that the government had a full year to draft this legislation, can the Attorney General explain why he didn't include a cooling off provision for senior public employees and close political advisors in this bill?
Mr. Speaker, the Conflict of Interest Act is mirrored on the Walkowicz report, with the major exception that the Honourable Leader brings up of a cooling off period of 6 months. In regards to the public service, on the introduction and during the announcement, we mentioned that there was provisions in the Act that will amend the Public Service Act such that complementary provisions can be brought into the Public Service Act through regulations, and those will be forthcoming.
Mr. Speaker, forthcoming is not good enough. It should be part of this act, Mr. Speaker. It has more weight. That's the point. As other governments have done, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I just want to ask the Attorney General, flowing from that, that Manitoba has a cooling off provision of 1 year that also applies to senior civil servants. Federal government has a cooling off period of 2 years, I already mentioned, for cabinet ministers, and 1 year for senior civil servants. And my question simply is this to the minister: doesn't the Attorney General see the potential for abuse when senior government employees in their department can create the demand for private consultants, then turn around and take these consulting jobs themselves and make thousands of dollars?
Mr. Mr. Speaker, the Walkowicz report did address the elected officials and the officials of government in public service. The Conflict of Interest Act, which could be part of or certainly complementary to the Legislative Assembly Act, deals with elected officials. I can assure the Honourable Leader that there will be forthcoming, quickly, provisions that will cover our public service.
Mr. Speaker, you said regulations. It's not the same as having it legislatively here in the legislature, Mr. Speaker. That's the point. But let me ask a third question on this matter, Mr. Speaker. It's even broader than this. Senior political advisors and government appointees, like Deputy Minister and heads of Crown corporations, are also not dealt with in this bill. They don't have to disclose. They can do business with the government the day after their position terminates. It's happened, Mr. Speaker, and there's no assurance that they will not use their government position for personal gain. My question again to the Minister, why didn't the Minister make this bill apply to these types of people also, Mr. Speaker?
Right. Mr. Speaker, I believe I answered that question in the previous response. The Act deals with elected officials, elected members of this Assembly. There will be forthcoming provisions in the Public Service Act that will cover all employees of our government, and I'm sure that the Honourable Leader will be happy with the provisions in that Act.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my second question is to the Minister of Health, Mr. Speaker. The internal government report written by Dr. Howard Platt, which I take it is the one that the Minister tabled today, makes some serious allegations about patient abuse of the healthcare system in our province, Mr. Speaker. What is strange, though, is that these findings are directly contradicted by this government's own, and I have it here, Mr. Speaker, an agenda for action, their own 1989 report of the Advisory Committee on the Utilization of Medical Services, done by the Dean of Medicine from the University of Calgary with some other qualified people. This report was done carefully over a 2-year period, and this report found that for the most recent fiscal year studied, patient use of the system actually leveled off or decreased in Alberta. Now, my question to the Minister is simply this. Given that both these reports can't be right, will the Minister tell us whether she accepts the findings of the Platt report or the Committee on Utilization?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is mixing two issues in health, and I will do my best to succinctly describe them. The first is with respect to utilization generally of the health care plan. And I think what we've determined from the Watanabe report is that utilization is not just number of services, which did dip in the year of the Watanabe report, but rather intensity and cost of those services, which is also part of utilization. What the report of the Provincial Medical Consultant's Office is, which I did table today, is to look at the perception I think some people have that there's high abuse within the healthcare system. And what it identified was that 0.2% of users is having a very high frequency of visit. And that is a very different issue. Said another way, 99.8% are not having a high level of visits. In fact, the average level of visits per Albertan per year is 2 to the physician. So I think it's important to define the two levels of the report. Where the medical consultant's report is going is now to the Utilization Monitoring Committee, which was recommended by the Watanabe report, to look at what might be appropriate actions to deal with the problem identified.
Well, that's one of the confusing parts about it, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister indicates, there is a monitoring committee set up, and it would be my understanding that they were to do exactly the same thing as Dr. Platt has done. And I guess when we're trying to save health dollars, my question simply to the Minister is this. Why will the Minister explain why it is that she's having her medical advisor studied the exact same thing that the monitoring committee has spent several years, much effort, many dollars already carefully monitoring. What's the point of doing this, Mr. Speaker?
No, in fact, Mr. Speaker, the monitoring committee put out a list of some of the issues that they felt we should look at in the issue of health care. Some of those like high use of lab and diagnostic services, high use of ophthalmology procedures, and the Utilization Monitoring Committee is working through those issues. In fact, what the report of the medical consultant is coming to the conclusion on is, and as the department certainly recommended, is it's not a matter of these particular people in this 0.2% of the population misusing the healthcare system. Rather, the question is, given that they clearly have a health need, as the report identifies, is the current model of fee-for-service physician visit the best way to deal with that need? In fact, the report concludes that there is a better way to deal with the health needs of those people than the current system that we have. And I think it's a very important role for the Ministry of Health to be looking at how we provide access to health services in order to make Albertans healthier. And I don't apologize for it one moment.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not asking the minister to apologize. I'm talking about replication of services that cost a lot of money, Mr. Speaker, and that's what maybe she should apologize for. But, Mr. Speaker, let's get into some of the recommendations because the minister alluded to them. And I would point out that this study was a relatively short period of time, 3 months. But I think it has some serious and questionable recommendations. Two specifically that I want to ask the minister about. It suggests taxing high-use patients' benefits as taxable income and also restricting doctor services currently covered under health care. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is the tip of the iceberg. You pick this group, then it'll go to the rest of Albertans whenever the government decides they need money, Mr. Speaker. Now, my question to the minister, because this is an important concept, will the minister categorically, here today in the legislature, disavow these suggestions and tell Albertans that under no circumstances will she breach the principle of universal medical coverage by adopting any of these regressive and unnecessary proposals?
Well, the Leader of the Opposition should stop fueling his questions from irresponsible headlines and start to look at the report that I tabled in this legislature today. Because what the issues were that were identified in this report was, given this issue, what are the things that we should do as a health system in order to deal with them? Certainly it outlined what some have recommended we do. Certainly it outlined options of what other jurisdictions in Canada have done. But as it says in itself, financial measures are a universal approach which do not address the health needs of the high users, but rather the symptoms of their behavior. I am pleased to put on the record this government's commitment to the Canada Health Act, to the principles therein, and there will be no suggestions, no actions taken which would violate the principles of that act. But I do believe we must look at the high user and look at providing access to the services that that user needs, perhaps that aren't included in the current model of healthcare delivery, and we will continue to do that.
Edmonton Glengarry on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Honourable Minister of Labour. Mr. Speaker, last week the Supreme Court of Canada ordered that legislation or codes of conduct that relate to federal civil servants be made much broader, opened up so that civil servants can involve themselves in political parties, collecting money, running for parties, and so on. Mr. Speaker, in our province, civil servants are guided by a code of ethics and conduct that was tabled in this legislature in 1978. There have been no changes to that code of conduct or code of ethics since that time, particularly relating to political involvement. There are many restrictions that I now think are too restrictive comparing to that Supreme Court of Canada decision. Will the minister advise this House whether or not she has initiated any discussions with the public service to change the code of ethics and conduct for the civil servants of Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, the federal government has for many, many years, and in fact the honourable member opposite may have encountered this in his door knocking, for federal civil servants to have a complete ban on any activity in political organization, whether at the constituency or riding level or at any policy level or at any fundraising level, etc. In fact, so much so that I've had, at least at the doors, a response often, well, I can't even vote, although that is indeed a misunderstanding of the federal government's policy. Recently, as has been mentioned, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that that was a restriction on freedoms under the Charter, and it should be opened up. In contrast, in Alberta, the government of Alberta, since 1978, has taken a very broad and lenient point of view. I say lenient because it was early recognized that we have citizens working for the government and that they too should be able to participate fully in the process that leads to us being members of this legislative assembly. We've had some more, say, pragmatic approach to the matter, and I think over the years that has worked very well. But I'd be interested in hearing the member's specific suggestions, if he has any.
Member Don McMahon.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there are specifics. One of the specifics is that the code clearly prohibits senior management officials from collecting money or even being involved in constituency organizations in this province. And one of the really glaring disparities between the legislation that the Minister of Municipal Affairs is bringing forward is in the area of public service being allowed to participate in elections. If you are a civil servant and you wish to run in Alberta, you are given 28 days or less time off. In the legislation, enlightened legislation that's coming forward from the minister, you're given 3.5 months to involve yourself. I don't think that's fair. Do you?
Mr. Speaker, we have said for many, many years now that if a civil servant, that is to say somebody who is employed by the government of Alberta, wishes to run an election, whether it be provincial or federal, or municipal for that matter, wishes to run, then that person is eligible to do so, and that person may do so. But as soon as the person has declared his or her candidacy, or that person, the writ drops, whichever is later, if the candidate wishes to announce his or her candidacy much earlier, then that person is given leave of absence. That is to say, that person's job is guaranteed. If the person is successful in running for office, of course, then the person takes the office and ceases to be a civil servant. But that has worked over the years, and some people have chosen to begin campaigns much, much earlier than the official campaign period is declared. We have taken it, and we have examples, I think, on our own in the House here, former civil servants who have run and have indeed started campaigning far ahead of the official writ period.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not the same job that's guaranteed. It's the same job or a similar job as designated by the government. That's much different than the municipal provisions that say the same job. I'm asking the minister, there are disparities, there are differences, there are unfairnesses. Will the minister agree to review this, or better still, put this over to a standing committee of this House to bring forward recommendations for action by this House?
Mr. Speaker, I think we have examples in this very House of people who have been elected, if that is the issue, who were formerly members of the civil service. And I think over time we have maintained a balance and a flexibility in our guidelines and code of ethics which allows appropriate circumstances, appropriate responses to circumstances as they arise. I think that it has worked very well. Certainly in any individual case, if the member has difficulties with it, I would be pleased to discuss those with him.
Clover Bar.
Mr. Speaker, my questions relate to an urgent constituency concern. The high water level at Hastings Lake is affecting the structural integrity of some of the homes along the lake. Has the Minister of Environment determined the cause of this unusual high water level?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the lake level is about 300 millimeters or a foot higher than what the lake has experienced in past years, and basically this is due to busy beavers, and the county of Strathcona has been working diligently to clear some of the beaver dams and thereby facilitate lowering of the lake level. It's further complicated, of course, by very, very wet weather, a lot of precipitation, and we'll be working with the residents along the lake to determine whether a long-term solution is required.
I would pass on the supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Edmonton Calder.
Mr. Speaker, people with disabilities and their advocates were amazed when yesterday the Associate Minister of Family and Social Services claimed that individualized funding is based on specific needs and is working well. And I know that the Minister has been lobbied by individuals and organizations concerned about the $3,000 limit that he has imposed. He is obviously ignoring their concerns, just like he has with the seniors, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
The reality is that many people need more than $3,000 a month to live independently in the community, but this government is forcing them to stay in institutions which can be much more expensive. To the Associate Minister, given that the Minister has been told of people who cannot move into the community because of this ceiling, how can the Minister ignore these concerns and say that he supports community living?
Yes.
Well, first, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for her interest in this topic, because it's certainly one that is very close to my heart. Back in 1988, I had the privilege of chairing a committee that took a look at persons with disabilities, and since then I have been very involved in that program in various ways, and now, as a matter of fact, I'm the minister responsible. Let me say that we have changed the population in one institution alone, Michener Center, from a population base of 2,400 to, I think, just over 1,000 right at the moment. Those people are living in the community with all of the supports necessary, Mr. Speaker. I think that the program is working well, and if the $3,000 limit is not sufficient, then we'll have to take a look at that. But up until now, it has been working exceptionally well, and the ceiling that is presently on that program has been able to accommodate the needs of those persons requiring the services.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know that the Minister must be aware of people that cannot move into the community because of this ceiling. I know of 3 people that want to move out of Michener Center at the moment, but they can't, and they're forced to stay in the institution. I know 4 others that are waiting to move out of a group home. They can't because they need more than the $3,000.
Right.
I'm sure that the Associate Minister must be aware of some cases like this. And I would ask the Minister, given that it is clear that the funding is not based on individual needs, will the Minister now admit that the $3,000 ceiling is unacceptable and change this policy?
Well, first, Mr. Minister, I already mentioned, or Mr. Speaker, I mentioned yesterday that we had identified over 400 people that wanted to move out of Michener Center, and we're addressing that right at the moment. As a matter of fact, we're reviewing it. But let me just give you some figures. Right at the moment, we are spending $141 million on assured income, assured income for the severely handicapped in this province. We're also spending $72.5 million on services individual services to persons with disabilities. We're spending another $82.5 million on institutional services. The money is there, Mr. Speaker, because as people move from the institution to the community, the money is following them into that community. And that is where the money is coming from, as well as the additional support from the department. So, Mr. Speaker, I haven't experienced a serious problem yet, and we're reviewing the program, and we are going to continue to help people move into the community where that can be proven that move is going to improve their quality of life. We're committed to that, Mr. Speaker.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is about the Alberta Wildlife Park. The Alberta government has abdicated its responsibility, Mr. Speaker, towards the taxpayers by not filling up to 7 vacancies or more for government appointees on the foundation that ran the wildlife park. Now, as a result of the foundation's mismanagement and a not too competent minister, we have a blowtorch-wielding octogenarian camping out at the park, a collection of animals that are capable of earning money if someone would open the gates and take the fees, and a native band with no money and no cages wanting to lead the animals away. Now, Mr. Speaker, the question is, will the minister agree that the ineptitude of the foundation and with his collusion, a large part of it, has lasted long enough, and ask the Premier to step in and ensure that the park is opened for satisfactory park is open so people can look at it, and a satisfactory long-term solution worked out by a government trustee?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you'll judge that as I don't know how many questions were involved in that, but I'll try to answer a few of the suppositions. The foundation was established under Section 9 of the Companies Act in
Why'd you ask it again, then?
The foundation was established, as I was saying, under Section 9 of the Companies Act in 1985, and in so setting up the foundation, the government could recommend some names on the foundation, but by no means appoint them. The people that join the foundation are from the public and are voted on at a board of directors meeting. The foundation has been working diligently to find a solution after the government had given them a direction that future government support would be diminished. I just might say that any supposition on the Enoch band, I think the honourable member should take that up with the band themselves, because that negotiation is going on between the foundation and the band. And you would have to repeat the rest of the question. I think there were several questions in there, and I've addressed the first two.
Mr. Speaker, the band has quite clearly announced that they don't have any money. It's very simple. They're asking the Prime Minister from the government and the taxpayers for money. Now, would the minister go this far, that he will guarantee to this House or promise this House that nobody will be dismissed, or he will not allow the foundation to dismiss any of the key employees of the wildlife park, thereby jeopardizing the health of those animals?
Mr. Speaker, I would in no way direct the operation of the Alberta Wildlife Park, which is under the foundation. I would no way take on a management position, because the Wildlife Foundation has been doing that diligently and to the best of their ability under the circumstances. And one other thing I would like to say, as of recently as yesterday, I would advise the member to consult with the Enoch Band to make a supposition on their financial ability to establish this park. I think is totally out of line in this assembly.
Thank you. My question is to the Honourable Minister of Education. Mr. Speaker, over and over again I brought forward to this Assembly the issue of poverty, unemployment and welfare and regional disparities in my constituencies. You just listen. An example of this is the Lacklebus School Division. Their present structure only allows them to spend $5,000 per capita per student in their school system, while other jurisdictions can spend over $10,000. Mr. Speaker, this is creating numerous problems for my constituents, to the point where they are laying off staff and cutting valuable programs for the students. And while we all realize that the alternative is to build up a strong assessment base for a constituency, that's one ideal way to go. It's not possible at all times. But I see a light at the end of the tunnel these days. I see the leader of the official opposition is now supporting the free enterprise concept. As of today, I read that in a journal. And I really appreciate that. After fighting him for 2 years here, fighting my industry, he is now supporting the free enterprise like ALPAC. Thank you, leader of the official opposition. My question to the Honourable Minister is, will the Minister give assurance to this Assembly that he will do whatever he can to assist this issue with the Lacklebus School Division?
What my honourable colleague does so eloquently
is
raise the issue of education funding and the uneven distribution of wealth across this province, upon which school boards rely for more than 40% of the cost of delivering education locally. And Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague has been very supportive of our efforts to find a solution to the problem of fiscal inequities across the province. I look at the Lac-La-Biche School Division and see that they taxed last year local taxpayers some nearly 12.9 mils, so almost 2 mils over the provincial average, Mr. Speaker. They raised $80 per mil per student compared to a provincial average of $174. Now that's just plain unfair, Mr. Speaker, and we've got to find a solution that helps boards like the Lac-La-Biche School Division to find a fairer source of funding of education. But I must say, Mr. Speaker, we have been supportive. In the last 3 school years, the provincial government has provided $350,000 in contingency funding. We will continue to be supportive of the Lac-La-Biche School Division and their efforts to deliver quality education in their school district.
Mr. Speaker, my supplement is to the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs. Because this is a matter that involves local assessment base and local taxes, could the Minister give some assurance to this Assembly that he will do whatever he can to assist through the ID18 Council and possibly through his department, assist the school division to resolve some of the problems they're faced with?
Mr. Speaker, I want to give the assurance to the honourable member on his with regards to his numerous representations with regards to this matter that we're prepared to help in any way we can in terms of trying to accommodate the needs of the Lac-La-Biche School Division. One of the programs that the Improvement District 18 South has is with regards to a reserve fund, and in this reserve fund there's a number of dollars that were put aside when the government of Alberta made available in the municipal debt retirement program a major sum of money, some $1 billion to all municipalities in the province. This improvement district does have some of that money in the reserve. Up to the present time, the school division has not been able to access it, but I would think further discussion should be held with regards to that matter, and I'm sure the honourable member would support that.
Edmonton Jasper, please.
Mr. Speaker, increasingly environmental issues are seen by the public as health issues. It's as if we now recognize we're a part of the environment and not separate from it. But there's a very important health aspect of government licensing of 6 major pulp projects in Alberta, referring to bronchitis, asthma, and cancer among people who work inside those pulp mills. This issue has fallen between the cracks. The Health Ministry is working on a long-term strategy. Environment excludes the issue from environmental impact assessments. Occupational health and safety, well, he'll get back to us if somebody writes a letter or something. But I would like to ask the Minister of the Environment why the crucial matter of the health and mortality of workers in pulp mills is excluded from the environmental impact assessment process in Alberta.
Mr. Speaker, there are numerous ministries and departments within government to address this particular issue. There is, as you pointed out, the Department of Occupational Health and Safety. There is the Department of Health. Very basically, the Department of Environment's mandate is to determine the environmental impacts of projects on land, air, and water. And there are other departments, as I pointed out, Mr. Speaker, to address the situation of health and the safety of the worker.
So environment looks at land, air, and water, but not people? Yeah. I think we're sort of getting to the nub of the matter. I mean, Workers' Compensation Board has identified 1 cancer case at Weldwood, which they've pegged to chemical exposure in the mill. There are studies around the world recognizing this problem, but not in Alberta. There are no Alberta studies. And in view of the burden of evidence, I'd like to ask the Minister of Health if she's reconsidering the request from the Public Health Association of Alberta to do baseline health studies among affected populations so that at least we'll have some basis for comparison in years to come.
Mr. Speaker, we are doing a baseline study with the involvement of public health in it. I'll certainly review the blues and ensure that I've got the intent of the honourable member's question, but certainly the purpose of the long-term strategy is to find the link between environment and health, which despite the honourable member's view that it has been scientifically discovered, in fact hasn't been scientifically discovered. Trying to find the baseline health studies, which we are now participating in, and impact of external sources on health is one that hasn't been clearly identified and linked, including the experts that we've consulted, not only in Alberta, but beyond Alberta, to find that link. So what we're trying to say with the long-term strategy is, what is the link on environment and health, and what can we do to ensure that we're catching it? So but I will review the blues to make sure I've caught the honourable member's question.
Edmonton Whiteman.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal caucus has raised the need for a master plan for decentralization a number of times to no avail. Even a question on the order paper on this very subject is rejected by this wheelbarrow government. Yesterday, the minister announced no relocations, or the Minister of Agriculture announced no relocations this year, but that they will go ahead next year. I am truly hoping, but I'm not overly optimistic that the government has learned from the ill-conceived lottery Stettler move announced by the member from Barrhead. To the minister responsible for agriculture, will the minister inform this House as to the results of any cost analysis or studies done by his department or any government department when it comes to relocation or decentralization of provincial employees?
Do you want to hear an answer, or do you want to keep talking? Mr. Speaker, as I indicated in the House about a week ago, as soon as we complete our decentralization plan, the staff in Alberta Agriculture will be the first ones to know the details. And as the honourable member should know, that until we complete the plan and know exactly A, the numbers that we're talking about, and B, the communities they'll be moving to, it's pretty difficult to do a cost analysis of it. We said from the beginning that we're attempting to decentralize in a cost-effective way, and that is still our intent. So he decided to do it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to hear that the minister has at least done some type of plan, although he hasn't admitted to that in the past, but he still has not done that cost analysis that should be done. The Premier and this government will talk about family unity. We'll talk about family unity, and for the sake of family unity, to the minister responsible for agriculture, will he commit to this House, for the sake of the government employees and their families, that he will file in this House, table in this House, any plans that are undertaken or completed, any cost analysis on decentralization before any further decentralization occurs?
Mr. Speaker, it is exactly because of our concern about family unity and the impact on family that we reached the decision last week that there would probably be no decentralization occur in the summer of 1991. We had made the commitment to the staff that we wanted to develop a total plan and share it with them all at the same time, not go in a piecemeal basis. And because our timeline slipped a bit, the shallow decentralization we were aiming for in 91 was too quick a timeline. So it's exactly because of the concern of family lifestyle, children, and the impact on their education that we've talked August timings on decentralization. As the honourable member didn't listen to my first answer, I said until you have a plan and know the number of people that you're working with and the locations that you're taking them to, you cannot put a cost analysis on it. When we have that plan completed, we will be doing a cost analysis and seeing how cost effective it will be.
Calgary Glenmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A number of Calgarians have expressed a concern regarding the development in the Kananaskis country. It appears that there are a number of major proposals for the Kananaskis country, and the major concern expressed is the public participation process. In most jurisdictions, there is a continual process for applications to have open public hearings, and I was wondering if the Minister of Parks and Recreation could explain the process of public participation in regards to development in the Kananaskis country.
Mr. Speaker, it's a well-directed question with all the concerns that have come forward recently. I would say the public process started back in 1985, in which there were public hearings brought forward on Kananaskis country, and the Kananaskis Integrated Resource Management Plan and Policy was put into place. Now, after that hearings, there was identified high recreational and other uses in Kananaskis country. In saying that, the proponents that bring proposals forward, and they come to us, we don't go out seeking these proposals, they come before the government. Those proponents then are directed to what we call the Kananaskis Country Interdepartmental Committee, which is made up of the Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, Recreation and Parks, Transportation, Environment Department, Public Works, Supplies and Services, and Tourism. They then set out a set of guidelines that must be met, as well as directing them to the public process or the calling for public hearings. For example, the Canalta and Heliski proposals that have been brought forward have both been directed to a public hearing process. Canalta is over at the present time and was advertised well in the area, and I have no information as to where the Heliski proposal is. It is also sent to the Kananaskis Citizens Advisory Committee for review, and after that, depending on what the Department of Environment does, and this is a new one, that could be directed to the Natural Resources Conservation Board, in which there is public review at that point. That's just the beginning, and I give full credit to the proponents that come forward, because the time, money, and effort that goes into these proposals is extravagant and long-standing, and to this date, all of the proposals that are there are not even to making an application for building permits, which then comes through Kananaskis country in this department. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, it seems like the public have not been hearing about these advertisements, and has the government basically deviated from this process since no one seems to be aware of these public hearings?
Well, Mr. Speaker, after the length of the first part of the question that I answered, I would say equivocally, no, we have not deviated from the process that I have outlined.
Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to raise with the Minister of Labor the issue of mandatory drug testing by employers of workers at the work site. Mr. Speaker, with drug testing, there is no guarantee of the workers' rights and freedoms. The drug test itself can be wildly inaccurate. And the fact that there are no guidelines in the labor codes or the human rights codes leaves the whole issue open to great managerial abuse of authority. In fact, Mr. Speaker, a constituent of mine working for a U.S.-owned firm in Leduc, where public safety was not an issue, was recently punished for not submitting to a drug test at his work site. Will the Minister of Labor please tell the Assembly here today what legislative solution she has for protecting the rights of workers against mandatory drug testing, mindful also of the needs to ensure public safety?
Mr. Speaker, it's my understanding that the Human Rights Commission has taken a good look at this issue, and I certainly would encourage the individual. The honourable member has mentioned to inquire at the Human Rights Commission. The Canadian Human Rights Commission has written quite an extended policy on this issue, and I believe it is one that has been accepted by ours here in Alberta as well.
Well, surprise, surprise, Mr. Speaker, we did contact the Human Rights Commission already and was told by Mr. Fraser, well, we don't have a policy on it, ask the minister. So here today I'd like to reiterate the fact that because these drug tests have a high error rate, for instance, you can test positive today if you took Dristan for a cold on the weekend, and the whole issue, the whole approach serves to undermine union-supported education and assistance programs, which is a much healthier way to approach this difficult issue. Will the minister at least commit to work with the Federation of Labor, the Building Trades Council, and the folks at the Human Rights Commission to develop a fair and coherent legislative policy on drug testing and stop this practice where employers can dismiss or refuse to hire workers who do not submit to the drug tests?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed to hear that our Human Rights Commission has not dealt with it, and that is something I will take up with them in the first opportunity that I have. And certainly everyone, I think, does recognize that where it may be appropriate for some jobs and in some circumstances and with certain protections for individual rights to have drug testing for workplace issues, there are also many one can imagine at least many ways in which that approach could be abused. So it is definitely something that needs to be worked out in consultation with employees, and if they are unionized, then through their union representatives. And I think appropriately it is done from work site to work site, because circumstances do vary from place to place, and what may be appropriate in one case is not in the other. So I certainly support the suggestion to develop policies that are appropriate across the province and involving employees themselves in the development of those policies.
Goldbar. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government keeps insisting that the changes to the Aids to Daily Living program were done to promote fairness and equity among clients. These clients are often the most vulnerable of our citizens. Yet it's apparent to me that what this Conservative government means by fairness and equity is that everyone suffers equally. I recently have had a plea, Mr. Speaker, regarding a young woman who's severely disabled, living in a group home, requires at least $2,000 a year for incontinence supplies. In the past, paid for by ADL, but effective July the 1st, this woman will now receive only $400 for these supplies. My questions are to the Minister of Health. Will the Minister tell the House how she expects this young woman to accommodate this additional charge of a minimum of $1,600 a year on an AISH income?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to look into the very particular circumstances of the issue that the honourable member has raised, because, as we've said frequently, cost sharing is not something which an individual on these income support plans will have to consider. But I would like to look at the particulars of the individual the member's raising, please.
Mr. Speaker, this is exactly the point. I want to ask the Minister, did the Minister have any studies done of actual consequences to real people, real individuals, before these changes were made? These people are already living in very constrained circumstances. Were any real studies done about the consequences?
Good question.
Mr. Speaker, our Premier's Council on the Status of Persons with Disabilities consulted widely throughout the province, and in fact it was one of their strongest recommendations that we look at building our programs not with age and disease discrimination, but rather to consider low-income circumstances regardless of age or illness. That is the way that we proceeded, and in fact the average cost of benefits for an individual with ostomy benefits was under Extended Health Benefits Program was $650 last year. So if the honourable member is telling me that there's an individual out there that's going to be forced to pay $1,600, I would like to look into the circumstances, having had the consultation of the Premier's Council to lead us to these decisions on our program.
Orders of the day.
Written questions.
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that written questions